Well, I want you to think of your immune system as your personal internal defense team. It is working 24/7 to protect you from really a range of foreign invaders.
Hey there, welcome to the Evolving Ageless podcast. This is the Enlightened Woman's Antidote to Aging, and I am your host, Michelle Dreilich. And as you know, I am on a mission to change the way women age. And so each week I'm joined by experts in their fields, sharing the latest and greatest to help us live an ageless life. So, Happy New Year and welcome to 2021. And so as part of that for me, there's so much negativity, it feels a little bit the same, right? We started 2021 with these high expectations and I sort of feel like things are the same. And so I ended my 2020 with a journaling exercise. I thought, okay, I'm going to bring it to closure by really focusing on the positive of 2020. And I know lots of people are doing this right now, really to kind of understand it and integrate it into our lives, and I can say so many positive things have come out of 2020. I know I have two teenagers and they're home more often, and I've gotten to spend more time with them that maybe I wouldn't have had any other way. But there are lots of other great things going on. I've talked about my home gym expansion, because I'm going to exercise more at home, or I'm exercising more at home. And so what kept coming up for me, though, was this idea that one of the silver linings of 2020 is how we as Americans have just kind of woken up. And I think what we've woken up to is this idea that, before these days, we've always had, disease, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, things that can happen to us over here, and then our lifestyle over here. And they haven't really kind of crossed lines. But now with the current pandemic, I think more than ever, Americans in general realize that the way that we care for our health, the way we care for ourselves matters. We know that people with diabetes and obesity and heart disease have a much worse outcome in this pandemic. And so the connection between people focusing on getting healthier and staying healthier is coming top of mind. And for me, that's my mission. And so it's really exciting to see people that may not have gotten here coming around. And so with that, it's made me really think about the immune system and what we can do for ourselves in 2021. So we start the year off super positive, not just a continuation of where we left off 2020. And for me, that goes back, this saying kind of came up in my journaling, which is sometimes the best offense is a solid defense, right? And so really, how do we bring that defense in? And the health of our immune system plays just such a major role there. And so here's the exciting thing. My guest today is Dr. Sally LaMont. You may have heard of her. She's in Larkspur, California. She has her own practice up there, and she's been working on charging or supercharging our immune systems, right? To feel more control as over the next several months, we start opening up a little more and venturing out into the world. So Dr. Sally is the founder of Dr. Sally's Kitchen, drsallykitchen.com. She's a licensed naturopathic doctor. She's an acupuncturist, and she's a gourmet cook. And so she, we always talk about medicine being food. This is the culmination of all of it coming together, right? And so through Dr. Sally's Kitchen, she empowers people to regain control over their health and using food as medicine. And so I am so excited to welcome you, Dr. Sally LaMont, to the Evolving Ageless podcast. It's so great to meet you and see you and talk through some of these ways that we can live ageless together.
Thank you so much, Michelle. We have such synergy. As I read the posts and guides you're putting out, I just love everything you're doing, and I'm excited today because I want to help your lovely listeners make the connection between the food you eat the way you live, and your health, especially the chronic health problems, because our daily choices really do determine our health outcomes. You have way more influence over your health and how it performs than you know, and it's highly responsive to our daily choices. So I want us to use this time wisely to grow our health so we can come out of the pandemic stronger than when we went into it.
Exactly. I love that. That's exactly the mission, right? Like we've never been gifted this amount of time before for self-care, right? If you think about
Yeah.
it, we've people that travel for work or that are in that hustle and bustle of being mom's taxi everywhere is calmed down. So now more than ever, I think there's opportunity for people to, this is the exciting part and the silver lining of the pandemic, right? Is that we're able to really focus on ourselves. And so let's talk about the immune system because I know this is your area of expertise. And we just take it for granted, I think, when we cut our finger when we're cooking and it heals itself, or sometimes people get a little eye infection and it just your body heals itself. So let's talk about what is the immune system really, especially in the context of where we are, where we've been, and where we're headed.
Love it. Perfect. Well, I want you to think of your immune system as your personal internal defense team. It is working 24/7 to protect you from really a range of foreign invaders. And I think it helps to think of yourself as a queen and your body as your queendom or your homeland, and your immune system as your personal military force. Now, I'm not a real military type of person, but the immune system is our internal defense team. So, and it is a little harder to understand sometimes maybe than other organs because there's your heart, you know where it is, your lungs, your intestines, but the immune system is scattered around the land. It's really a complex network of defense tissues like the bone marrow, glands like the lymph nodes and the thymus gland, and specialized cells and their chemical messengers that work together as a team to protect you from foreign invaders, whether it's bacteria or viruses or parasites, pollens, toxins, allergens. Your immune system is working against all of that. And it has three main branches, and I just kind of want to run through them so you have a sense of the lay of the land there. And the first part of the immune system is the protective barriers, like a fortress or a moat around your queendom. These barriers are the first line of defense, and the skin is the logical one. It's perfectly designed to keep out moisture and cold and the sun and an endless array of germs and toxins. But beneath our outer skin lies our inner skin. And that's this vast mucosal surface from our nose to our throat and our entire respiratory and digestive tract. These mucosal surfaces are really the front line of the battle, the border between the outside world and our inside world. So maintaining the health of these barriers is essential to keep microbes like this virus from penetrating and gaining entrance into these tissues. So just a simple tip to help heal the inner mucosal surfaces of our body is to get off of wheat and gluten if you haven't already, because gluten and its cousin gliadin are compounds that can transiently, not long-term, but for several hours after eating, they cause what we call hyperpermeability. This is especially true in the gut, intestinal hyperpermeability, which is leaky gut. So we want to nurture and support these barriers. And one of the things that's been found to be really helpful is our probiotics. They modify the population of the 100 trillion bacteria and viruses that live there and support mucosal immunity, resulting in enhanced resistance to infection. So there's the protective barriers. And then there's these two parts of the immune system that I just want to touch on, because we hear these words in the news if you're tracking COVID, but we may not really know what they mean. So there are really these two branches. The innate immune system is kind of like a police squad of white blood cells and things like neutrophils and lymphocytes and monocytes. If you've ever had a blood test done, you might see those things listed. They are the cells that comprise our innate immune system. And they're the ones that kick into gear immediately, like when you cut yourself in the kitchen. You immediately have a set of white blood cells and other agents that come to stop the bleeding and fight off infection quickly. But the challenge with the innate immune system is it's fast, but it's not very specific. So there's another part of the immune system, and that's called the adaptive immune system. And it's the one that is constantly learning from the innate immune system what kind of an invasion we're having, which virus it is. And they're acquiring information and then developing a very specific response. So this is where things like T cells and B cells come in. T cells come out of the thymus gland, which is under your sternum. And it's interesting because we know some people have some immunity, it seems, to COVID. And it's because COVID is closely related, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, to the common cold virus. So those of us who fought colds over and over, there may be some overlapping immunity there, but it's really the B cells that are the ones that come in and create antibodies. And that takes a week or 10 days to 2 weeks for the immune system, the adaptive immune system, to learn. I'm going after this specific spike protein and I'm going to knock that thing out. So what we want to do is support the entire immune system to work for us.
I love that because, I will say this, first of all, to anyone listening, the immune system, when you study it, is science fiction. It's amazing. And our understanding of it is evolving more and more every year. Right. And so, had COVID come, 20 years ago, it would be a very different story than it is today. Even much, much worse. And so what's amazing to me, though, is how easily you explain that, because it makes total sense, right? The two arms that really, take over and protect us. And what's interesting, though, is there are people, right, that maybe they don't have as good of a response as the way you describe the immune system working. So why is that? Why do so many people these days have this compromised immune response or immune reaction?
Yeah, great question. Well, it's really been over the last 50 years that the rates of chronic diseases have been skyrocketing in America. 50 years ago, diabetes was not a common condition. And as we brought in high fructose corn syrup and began eating so many refined unprocessed foods, we began to develop chronic illness. And so the short answer to why is all these chronic diseases promote aging of the immune system. And we're both all about healthy aging, but there is in immunity a concept called immune senescence. And it just is the aging of the immune system. And it's happening from the erosion of our health from the chronic disease epidemic it's really killing our society. We're talking high blood pressure, high blood sugar, obesity, coupled with high blood cholesterol and triglycerides. You end up with a set of conditions like heart disease and stroke and diabetes and cancer. These are the conditions that predispose us to the worst outcomes of COVID-19. What's really sad is when these conditions cluster together, as they do, it's called metabolic syndrome. And about a third of Americans have metabolic syndrome. And it's this lethal combination of high blood cholesterol, high blood sugar, obesity, and it creates a state of chronic inflammation. And that's part of what impairs our immune system and predisposes us to the worst outcomes of COVID-19. And just to cap that off, according to the CDC, 6 in 10 Americans have one of those diseases, and 40% of us have 2 or more, and the rest have, 30% of our population has metabolic syndrome, and they're the ones on the in the ICUs on ventilators.
That's
really sad.
Exactly right. It is very sad. It's but it's predictive, right? So it helps us understand, where we used to think, oh, well, this is like lightning striking on who's going to respond and how. And the deeper into the time frame of COVID we get, the more we realize that we do know a lot about what's predictive for a poor outcome. And so the sad part is, in many ways, it's late for people that are deep into those chronic conditions, but it's an amazing wake-up call to take action and jump in and rebuild not just your immune system, but rebuild your health from the inside out, right? And that's really what, like you said, we sing from the same hymnal, right? That's where we're coming from, the same place, that it's empowering and it's positive. It is the positive that has come out of 2020, which is we now know that the way we live our lives, our everyday lifestyle, has such a significant impact on our outcome. I know I've said this before in other talks, if you've heard me, but I've always resented going into the doctor's office in a conventional practice where I'm asked to fill out my past medical history, and I say my mother had heart disease, 2 heart attacks, 10 stents, and bypass surgery, and my father had diabetes, and they're trying to tell me about when I get diabetes and when I have my first heart attack. And that's not the case, right? I live such a different lifestyle. And I have more knowledge and education and information because I'm in a different generation, so we don't give people credit for that. But what I love, though, Dr. Sally, is how you bring this right into just what we can do every day, right? So you've listed out kind of 5 major things that you can do. And I know you've got a guide, a booklet that you're going to share with the audience. I'll give everyone that information in a minute. But ways to supercharge our immunity, just 5 of them that we could go over. And I know the other 15 are in the guide, but what's the, like, food wise, if you had to pick like the perfect food that you would recommend that people try to get more of in their diet right now during these times, what would you say?
Well, I don't know if it's the perfect food overarching, like that there's any one particular perfect food, but the one that I think most people might not really eat much of or understand the benefits of are shiitake mushrooms. Now, a lot of people like mushrooms because of that umami flavor, but shiitake mushrooms are the cute little ones that have kind of a little slanted cap. If you ever watched the Disney show Fantasia, back in the 40s, they made the little dancing mushrooms. Those were shiitake mushrooms. And they're an Asian mushroom. They have a delicious taste. But what's amazing about shiitakes is that they are a really rich source of vitamin D. And we know from research around the world, the people who have good levels of vitamin D, and that's levels of vitamin D between 50 to 80, if you want to go look on your blood tests, those are the people who do well. The people who have low levels of vitamin D are more they're more open to infection, and they're the ones that are landing in the ICUs and on ventilators. So let's get some vitamin D in, and we can do that by eating mushrooms. Interestingly, mushrooms are often grown, especially shiitakes, are grown under UV light, which actually helps the mushroom make its own vitamin D, and it can do that even after it's been picked. So if you want to take your mushrooms and you can slice them and put them out on a cookie sheet in the sun for a couple of hours, let them get a suntan, and they're going to build their vitamin D levels. But shiitakes actually have a carbohydrate in them called beta glucans that helps to lower inflammation and really supports not only the immune system but our endocrine system. And it's special kind of a sugar molecule in it, polysaccharides that have antioxidant and free radical scavenging activities, and has been linked to better regulation of our blood sugar. So who doesn't want all of those things? And I noticed in the post that you just sent out that you spoke about insulin resistance and blood sugar. So it's really important that we eat a diet that's like I'm going to call it a modified Mediterranean diet, and modified in that it isn't rich in pasta and gluten, but rather the rainbow color of beautiful vegetables and fruits that contain phytonutrients that those are the pigments that make them red and orange and yellow and green. Those talk to our genes and help them regulate our metabolism so that we don't get into these metabolic problems like diabetes and heart disease.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. And shiitake mushrooms are really rich in Asian culture foods. They're really highlighted in those cultures for a reason, right? And these are the cultures that we know have much longer longevity, much better quality of life at age. So it's fascinating, and I love it. And I've never heard in all the years of nutrition, I've never heard about giving them a little sun bath, right? That they actually continue to manufacture vitamin D after they've been picked. That's amazing, because we always hear stick them in a dark place, right? So I love that you're saying put them in the sun. That's great. That's great. So there are supplements too, I would imagine, but and there's a ton of supplements right now, ingredients that you can look for, but you were explaining there are two really important ones that you like to feature, especially in kind of today's new normal, right?
Right. And one of them that I think is so key is it's actually a hormone that our body makes all by itself. It's melatonin. It's made by the pineal gland, and it's designed to help our body sense when night is coming so that we can fall asleep. But it turns out that melatonin does a whole lot more than just help us sleep. It's also a really powerful immune regulator with antiviral properties. And it's been demonstrated in animal studies to activate certain kinds of immune cells, including natural killer cells and lymphocytes to help fight viral infections. And I think most importantly, it helps to block the production of these pro-inflammatory cytokines and reduce the oxidative damage to tissues like the lungs and the blood vessels that are so damaged by what they call that cytokine storm. When people get sick, it's just like a 5-alarm fire erupts in the body, and melatonin can block some of that. So given its long history of safe use and the immense problems that we have in our society with sleep disorders and viral pneumonia, it really makes sense to use melatonin. Now, it's found in some foods like salmon and pistachios and walnuts and cherries. So on my Dr. Sally's Kitchen site, I have a little recipe for cherry sleep shots where, because it's rich in cherries are rich in melatonin, you can take a little evening cocktail to help you sleep. And of course, all the antioxidant rich nutrients. Another one that I think is really important, and it's actually falling into the category of an herb, and it's called astragalus. Now, I'm an acupuncturist, and decades ago when I was in acupuncture school, we learned about astragalus. Kind of looks like the way you would buy it if you were buying at at an herb store or from the internet, it looks like a tongue depressor. It's a shaved piece of the root, and it is kind of got a yellow color to it, and it's just really rich in phytochemicals that a ton of studies have shown have an antiviral effect and inhibit the growth and metastasis of a variety of different cancer cells, and actually has a protective effect for people going through chemotherapy, and in help blunting that inflammatory response. Researchers are scrambling to try to figure out how to turn that into a drug. Meanwhile, you can just buy astragalus. I actually have a link to it in the Dr. Sally's Kitchen site in my chicken soup recipe, because that's how the traditional Chinese culture, and the way I've been doing it since graduating from acupuncture school years ago, is to just stick a few of these little sticks into a pot of chicken soup as you're cooking it. Do it like you could even put it in bone broth when you make that. And it then exudes its great phytochemicals to help support the immune system.
And that's the way, right? When we talk about absorption, that's the way our bodies recognize the healing power of these herbs, right? Is when we're able to digest them and absorb them and bring them in as part of your food. Is what a brilliant way of doing it. I also know that astragalus has some role with respiratory and bronchial health as well. So adding it into today's, pandemic is actually a pretty smart idea. Which is fantastic. It's just fantastic. Now, there, along the lines of the melatonin, right? When we get into some lifestyle things, what are the things that you recommend for lifestyle, right? Because there are changes that we can make to the way we live that can have an impact on our immune system as well.
Absolutely. And, though food is the foundation of life in my book, the other really, and we're going to talk about a couple of them, but sleep. We are such an under-rested population. And, I think the digital age has just made it worse. We sit up under artificial light, and these LEDs that are, more energy saving actually are pumping out more blue light to our brains that turn off melatonin production. So as we sit watching TV, playing on our phones or iPads or laptops, we are actually having blue light come in that dampens our ability to sleep and production of melatonin. So I want us to unplug early. And I've got a really beautiful article that you guys can explore, you women, because you're pretty much all women who are interested in healthy aging, that I have a 7 sleep. It's like a little recipe for healthy sleep. And really unplugging is at the key of it. And taking in some melatonin and drinking some sleepy time tea and maybe pouring a hot bath with some lavender. In other words, create a sleep ritual, so that we know that sleep has been demonstrated to promote the activity of several types of the immune cells, including the natural killer cells and lymphocytes that help us fight viral infections. So I want you to prioritize sleep, both for your beauty and to make bags under the eyes go away, but to keep your immune system really strong and healthy.
I love it. I love it. And then the last piece, right, is how we move. Yeah. So let's talk about that. I don't know that a lot of people think about movement when they think about their immunity, but boy, they are tied so closely together.
They really are. I mean, we have got a generation of couch potatoes, and now that our kids and we all sit around on Zoom all day long learning and working, it has really sabotaged this natural instinct that we have. We are animals who have only survived by virtue of the fact that we did move. We were up at the crack of dawn hunting for food, and it's essential to our survival. If our soldiers just sat around eating sugar like we do, we would be defenseless. You remember, as you're a queen of your body, you are in charge of this marvelous immune system. So I want you to get those immune cells up in your body and get moving. It's so much more fun than sitting around. The more you sit around, the harder you feel. So there's so many incredible things that you might love to do. I don't care whether it's dancing in the dark or hiking hills or doing a Zoom yoga class. We know that movement primes our immune system in multiple ways, and helps us to defend against respiratory viruses especially.
Mm-hmm.
So
And it's interesting because we feel like, our cardiovascular system, our heart beats, so it's a pump and it moves our blood around, right? But our immune system works through lymph, and the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump, so to speak, right? And so when we
right.
move, any kind of exercise, especially even things like yoga, even gentle yoga, you're moving and you're encouraging that flow to allow the immune system to move around a lot more efficiently, I think, than
Excellent
other.
point.
Yeah, it's great. These are really fun. These 5 things are really, really clever. And I love that you've got 20 of them. We just covered the first 5 today. And so Dr. Sally has an ebook called The Essential Guide to Supercharging Your Immunity. And it, like I said, it's covers other aspects of it. And it's a 20-page guide that you're giving to the audience as a gift. And if you go to evolvingageless.com/35, you will find in the show notes the link to actually grab that PDF, that 20-page ebook of yours on that. And then along those lines, right, because the world is virtual right now, and I feel like, I've learned during the pandemic, not only have I, built out my workout room, I've learned to play chess more seriously by investing in a program, an online virtual, training program, and I feel like the world is now, we can learn anything. It's all at our fingertips. And I love that you've done the same thing for the immune system with your new program called the Healthy Immune Reset. So why don't you tell us real quick about that and what it's for and how you're helping people recharge their immune systems?
Yeah, I'd love to. So this is a 5-week online course that's really designed to help you optimize your overall health and especially your immune system through the right foods, supplements, herbs, nutrients, and lifestyle shifts. So it's really building on everything we've talked about this morning. I love teaching people how to reduce inflammation, balance their blood sugar, and get off that blood sugar roller coaster that really lands them in the chronic disease epidemic. But I'm a food first kind of person, so I've put together a set of recipes. I'll be sharing some healthy breakfast, lunch, and dinner recipes, introducing you how to grow your own shiitake mushrooms and work with them. And I'm doing kabocha squash, those beautiful, like a denser than a butternut squash, very rich in beta carotene and other immune supportive nutrients. Let's see, we'll talk about how to make cauliflower rice and how to work with fennel. I'm going to teach people about how to improve their respiratory health with some both ancient Chinese and naturopathic therapies. And I'm going to lead us on a 36-hour fast, which might sound like either way too long or not long enough, but it's really just overnight from, say, Sunday night dinner, not eating through the day on Monday, and breaking the fast on Tuesday morning. research has shown that's very supportive to the immune system.
Mm.
It helps our body reset itself. And we're not going to not just be eating, because I have a set of delicious things to sip on through today to keep blood sugar balanced and yet allow your body to go into the regeneration that it does during a fast. So, if you head over to thehealthyimmunereset.com, I've put together an overview of the course, and it's going to be running through the month of February, but I'm going to make it evergreen because this pandemic is not going away tomorrow. They're really considering that this may become endemic, meaning it's around us like the common cold and the flu. So this is an opportunity, like you said in the very beginning, Michelle, for us to look at not just strengthening our immune system, but building our health so that we don't just age into disrepair and discomfort and disease, but we get started early in our 30s, 40s, and 50s so that we make it into our 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s and beyond in really vibrant health. I'm going to close with just saying our bodies are so responsive to the way we eat and live. So I would just want to inspire you to jump into taking better and better care of your health. And I want to see you thrive as you age.
I love that. Everything. I know I don't know if you can see it. I try not to speak, right, when we're doing a podcast, but I'm like, I love that. I love that. I keep whispering it, and I catch myself like, I hope I'm not interrupting her on the audio. But these are all such great tips, honestly, and really the whole concept of owning our health and owning the way we age, and our immune system is such a key part of that, right? Because as we know, when our immune systems are tapped, then we are inflamed, and inflammation ages us, right? It's not called inflammaging for nothing. It ages us. Right. And so it's about keeping everything cool, right? Like, let's keep it cool. And I love the use of food as our medicine, and how you really tackled all of the key aspects of your immunity with food. It's wonderful. So anyway, thank you so much for sharing all of your incredible wisdom, your 5 tips for supercharging. Gosh, the gift of the ebook for everyone. I would definitely grab that ebook and learn more about how you can supercharge your own immunity. And then when you find yourself like-minded, right, as we are, about using food as medicine and really understanding your immune system, definitely check out the Healthy Immune Reset. We've got a link in the show notes as well, and but we'll be able to get your link right to it. And if anyone is interested in the Healthy Immune Reset, I think it's fantastic. So with that, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing just immense wisdom with our audience.
Well, thank you, Michelle. It was really fun to talk with you. I knew we had so much in common, and I look forward to getting to know you better and supporting your work as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So with that, I will be back next week with more information, more experts, more ideas, tips, tricks to help us live an ageless life. I look forward to it, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.